After that, Yunsu had disappeared from Chaya's life for more than a year. Her memories of him were beginning to fade, so she started writing a book about the two of them. Her editor, however, wanted to change the main character, saying he came across as too much of a jerk. She even asked if Chaya had something against him since she had portrayed him so negatively, calling him things like a food-deprived sloth and a blob of wet seaweed. She also added that Yunsu seemed insufferable and petty, which made Chaya wonder if he had really come off that badly. Then the editor asked what the ending would be, what happened to the two of them, and whether it was a happy ending. Chaya replied that maybe it was, since they had finally freed themselves. But the editor pressed further, saying she wanted to know what became of them. At that, Chaya thought to herself that he had ghosted her. About a year ago, in a castle in England, Gemino had reluctantly taken on the role of head, as the last surviving member of the Grey family. On that particular day, Yunsu had come to visit him. He started the conversation by calling Gemino a lock, to which Gemino replied that Yunsu looked more like a lock than he did. Yunsu had heard that a blind vampire with clairvoyance was now ruling the castle, but he hadn't known it was Gemino. He added that Gemino probably knew why he had come. Gemino said he did. Yunsu had come for Leo and Gurim. Then, in typical fashion, Gemino reminded him that they weren't close enough to be asking favors like that, and asked if Yunsu had no shame. Yunsu replied that Gemino was just as shameless for taking over as the lord of the castle after father's death. Gemino then asked if Yunsu would like to take his place instead, and Yunsu declined without hesitation. Eventually, Gemino agreed to help him, but only under one condition. Yunsu had to go on the run and take the blame for Grey's death. He explained that the two factions, those who had supported Grey and those who opposed him, were now fighting over who should die, but what they really wanted was to compete for the empty seat of power. They needed a scapegoat, and Gemino needed Yunsu to be that scapegoat to delay the inevitable vampire war. He added that it wasn't entirely false anyway. Grey's killer was Han Chaya, and her accessory to the murder, Park Yunsu. Wasn't it better for Yunsu to take the blame than for Chaya to be on the run again? It would only be for 1 year. After that, Yunsu could go see her. Back in the present, the editor asked Chaya if they had broken up. The ending of her manuscript made it seem like the two characters had confessed their feelings to each other. So did they really like one another? Chaya couldn't give an answer, so the editor asked again if she liked him. Caught off guard, Chaya was surprised. At that moment, the editor's fork fell to the ground. As she bent down to pick it up, Chaya's eyes widened in shock. Sitting just in front of her was Yunsu, and he mouthed the words, "I am waiting." Chaya stood up in surprise, then quickly sat back down when she noticed the editor looking confused. The editor asked her again to clarify whether the characters had confessed to each other in the final scene. Embarrassed, Chaya replied with a hesitant maybe, but the editor pressed further, insisting that they must have at least kissed or something. Turning red, Chaya shouted at her to be quiet and reluctantly agreed to come up with a clearer ending. The editor advised her to make Yunsu a little less deranged and more human. Just then, her fork dropped again, and as she bent down to pick it up, Chaya's expression shifted to one of anger. She glared at him, demanding silently to know why he was there. He simply shrugged in response, which only made her angrier. She raised her middle finger at him and told him to get out of her sight. Unfortunately, the editor rose at that exact moment and mistakenly thought the gesture was directed at her. Chaya could only think to herself how impossible it was to portray Yunsu as more human when he just sat there laughing silently. Then the editor brought up the umbrella scene, the moment when the main character started falling for Yunsu. Chaya responded bitterly that she hated that scene now, all while crying on the inside. With that, the meeting came to an end. Chaya figured she'd probably be stuck dealing with Yunsu again, but when she glanced across the table, he had already disappeared. She went home feeling paranoid, checking every corner and calling out, convinced he would surprise her at any moment. She shouted into the empty apartment, daring him to come out if he was hiding, but the place was completely silent. No one was there. Disappointed, she went to take a shower. As the water ran, she fumed, wondering if he thought she was still hung up on him. It had always been difficult for her to open her heart, and now he was just toying with her again. When she came out of the shower, she froze. Yunsu was lounging on her sofa, casually reading her script. Shocked, she asked how long he had been there. But instead of answering, he asked if she was writing a novel about them, commenting that it felt tame compared to what had really happened. Chaya's face turned a deep red from embarrassment, and she shouted at him to get up. Then she ran toward him, trying to snatch the paper, but Yusu dodged her and asked if she wasn't being too harsh with him in her writing. He then teased her, asking if she missed him so much that she had to write a whole novel about him. Chaya chased after him and punched him square in the face. She shouted that she was planning to screw him over and make money by selling his stories everywhere. Yusu asked if that meant she was heartbroken, adding that he missed her too. He said he had only ever wanted to come back to her, and then he kissed her. Just then, her phone started ringing. Yunsu picked it up and asked who the caller, Kim Seon-woo, was. Chaya replied that it was no one, but he persisted, wanting to know why this man was calling her. Then he tossed the phone toward her, telling her to answer it. She picked it up and the man on the other end asked why she hadn't been reading his texts. Chaya replied that someone kept bothering her. The man said he wanted to change the timing of their date, and she responded that it was okay to cancel if he was busy. Yunsu came closer and told her to go, saying that it would be fun. Chaya wondered why he was getting angry. They weren't in a relationship, so he had no right to be upset. The man then asked what she preferred for dinner, and she replied that anything other than steak was fine. She added that a certain someone had made her eat it so much that she was sick of it all while glaring at Yunsu. After the call ended, the two of them stood facing each other with their arms crossed, clearly annoyed. Then Yunsu asked if she had been seeing other men while writing his story. She shot back, asking if he really expected her to wait for him the whole time. Yunsu started laughing, then stepped closer and said that tomorrow would be an enjoyable day, although he wasn't entirely sure. Then he disappeared, leaving Chaya to wonder alone what he had meant.
On her date the next day, all Chaya could think about was why Yunsu wasn't there. He had definitely made it seem like he was going to cause some trouble. She wanted to go home and thought, strangely, that her life had been going smoothly up until yesterday, but now it felt uninteresting. The man asked about her book, and she replied that she wasn't going to publish it, thinking to herself that it had only been a way to draw Yunsu out. If she went around talking about him, she felt like he would show himself out of spite. She had been waiting for him, but now they had become complete strangers who only shared some memories. She wondered if there was even a reason to get back together with him. Just then, she saw Yunsu in her peripheral vision. He grinned at her, instantly understanding her feelings about her boring life. Just by looking at her face, he could read her mind and silently urged her to come to him. Then, in an instant, he disappeared again, and Chaya thought, could he not even wait? As she drove back home, she wondered why he had even come if he was just going to leave. Did he think things were going well between her and that guy? Was he a fool? He wasn't even her boyfriend. What right did he have to chase her on a date? Just thinking about it made her angry. She cursed him out loud, and suddenly he responded, asking what she was saying about him, casually sitting in the back seat of her car. He started laughing, and as Chaya began talking to him, he told her to focus on driving. He asked about her date, and she replied that the man had been really polite. Yunsu asked, "So what?" She responded that the man didn't scare people, didn't do crazy things, and even held her hand when she was about to fall. Yunsu suggested they stop talking about that man. Didn't he deserve some praise for not interrupting their date? Then he added that it was his turn now. Chaya replied that he had become even more out of touch. He leaned in and told her that he had come for her and asked her to leave with him to find Gurum. Chaya immediately asked about Jurum's well-being, and Yunsu got jealous that she didn't ask the same about him, telling her that he was badly hurt too. She fell into deep thought, and Yunsu told her not to hold back from asking anything. So she asked why he had disappeared for a year, and whether he had come back for her or for Gurum. He didn't answer, and Chaya asked if it was really true. Seeing his blank expression, she couldn't help but cry and be angry at the same time. She angrily bombarded him with questions and insults, while Yunsu, in his twisted way, was thrilled to see this raw expression of hers. Then he kissed her, but Chaya bit his lip. He quickly made her spit out his blood, warning her to be more cautious. He explained that when they ended Father, they also ended the center of their world. That meant they were still not safe. Just as he said that, a truck came and slammed into their car, sending it flying across the road. Somewhere else, we see Gurum wake up beside a much older Leo. At first, he was confused about where he even was. Then he noticed that Leo looked older. He had wrinkles that made him seem almost human. Suddenly, memories started coming back to him. When they had fled from father, Gurim had noticed that Leo's body was deteriorating due to his broken promise. Gurim had offered him his blood, knowing that a human wouldn't die from breaking a promise. Leo had accepted it, and after that, Gurim had fainted. Now he was waking up again in the same place. It looked like a wooden shed in the middle of a forest. He stepped outside and saw Leo, now missing an arm, sitting on the grass. Leo told him that he had been asleep for a year after giving him his blood, and that he had been waiting for him to wake up ever since in this place. Gurim asked about what had happened after the incident, about the castle and father, but Leo said he had no idea what was happening in the outside world. Then Gurim asked about Rose and instantly regretted it, but Leo calmly answered that she had passed away and that it was okay to talk about it as a year had already passed. Gurim wondered if they had done the right thing, if that was truly the best they could do. He then told Leo that he needed to find Yunsu, and when Leo asked how he planned to do that, Gurim replied that he knew how to get in touch with Han Chea. Meanwhile, Yunsu had grabbed Chaya and escaped from the car just before the accident. She angrily asked who was attacking them and whether it was because of him. He explained that this wasn't what he had prepared and that they needed to be somewhere. When Chaya asked where, he replied that he had made a promise to someone and now it was time to claim his reward. Yunsu teleported, and the place they ended up in was right on top of Gemino, who had been sleeping in his bed. Surprised, Gemino kicked them both out of his bed. Chea, upon seeing him, questioned how he was still alive. Gemino asked if she had caught Yunsu's personality, but Yunsu clarified that Chea's personality had always been the bad one. With that, he got to the main point and asked for Gurim's information. Gemino told Chea that Gurim would contact her tonight. She was surprised, as Gurim didn't have her number, but Gemino reminded her of the forum the two of them used to use. Meanwhile, Leo and Gurim were at a cafe playing games and engaging in their usual casual banter. Leo thought to himself that he had done everything he could for Gurim, just as Rose had asked, and it was about time for him to leave. Gurim, on the other hand, just hoped that Chaya would get his message. Meanwhile, Chaya and Yunsu were patiently waiting for it. Yunsu asked if she would come with him. Chaya asked if he was talking about finding Gurim, but Yunsu said, "Anywhere." She asked what he meant by that, and until when. Yunsu replied, "Anywhere with me, until you die." Chaya was taken aback, and he continued, explaining that in human terms, this would be considered a proposal. Chaya was so surprised she couldn't even utter a word. Then her phone started buzzing, and when she checked, it was indeed a message from Gurim. After this, we finally see them reuniting, Chaya and Gurim simply happy to see each other, though she was surprised to see that Leo was still alive. Then Gurim noticed Yunsu standing a bit farther away from them, looking uncertain about what to say, but Gurim quickly hugged him. They talked about how Gurim really did find Yunsu, just as he had said he would, and Gurim replied that it was obvious he would be sneaking around Chaya. He then asked if Rose really had to die, and Yunsu responded that those who survive through someone's death should not question the value of that death. When father was conducting experiments in Yunsu's village and children began dying, everyone's anger started to turn toward Rose. Then one day, Yunsu and Sion found her injured. While Yunsu went back to get help, Sion stayed behind and ended up giving Rose his blood to save her. Rose became an adult, and to cover it up, father decided to burn everything down. But before that, Rose helped Sion survive, which eventually led to Gurim being born. Thus, unknowingly, Rose had been walking the path to end father from the very beginning. Inside the house, Chea and Leo were scheming to get Yunsu drunk again. When Yunsu asked what they were up to, Chea casually suggested that they should drink. Yunsu tried to warn her that she would be the only one to get drunk, though she was too confident in her plan. But just as he had said, she was the first to get drunk and began talking about Yunsu's proposal. He replied that it didn't matter if she didn't want to get married. He could just tie her up for the rest of her life. Leo was irritated watching her get drunk and seeing their plan fail, while Gurim tried to stop her from drinking more. However, she ended up mocking the nickname of Gurim's Cafe and the name of their old forum. In return, Gurum exposed how Chaya had once written with ketchup that she would be a servant to the great vampire. After that, the two of them began bickering and fighting. Leo tried to intervene but was immediately scolded by Chaya, so he turned to Yunsu and asked him to stop them. Yunsu replied that it was her own fault for getting drunk. But underneath his calm demeanor, he actually wanted to humor her. He was just too aware of all the eyes watching. Then, in the middle of the chaos, Yunsu suddenly walked over and picked her up. He began kissing her, but Leo kicked them both, telling them to control themselves. They ended up falling onto the floor, and Geirim warned Chea not to be fooled by Yunsu, as he was over 100 years old. She asked if he really was that old. At first, Yunsu wondered whether that was considered a lot, then agreed that for a human it might seem like it. He then pulled her close and told her to listen to her. Senior. Leo told them to leave if they were going to be like this, and so Yunsu teleported and the two of them ended up on a beach. He started laughing, saying they were supposed to go to his room but had ended up in the wrong place. Then he began kissing her again, telling her that she was pretty. Seeing his cool demeanor and how awkward she felt, Chea said it felt like she was the one with unrequited love. Yunsu burst out laughing. Annoyed, she walked away, and he followed behind her. He thought to himself, how could she say that? He had come running to her as soon as the 1 year was over, and now she was talking about unrequited love. If anything, it should be him. He pulled her back, and both of them ended up standing in the water. Yunsu said that she already knew her feelings could never be greater than his. She knew it, and yet she still wanted confirmation, and that wasn't fair. Chea replied that she always had to win against him to feel at ease. He kissed her again, saying that then he would make sure to always lose. After this, Chea asked if it was really okay that she was human. He replied that it was fine. He used to think he was lonely because there was no other vampire by his side, but that wasn't the case. She asked what would happen when she grew old. Would he get tired of her and get rid of her then? Yunsu suggested that he could make a promise to live by drinking only her blood for the rest of his life. In that moment, Chea realized something. Had anyone ever trusted Yunsu? Had he ever truly trusted someone? The way he always rushed to make promises every time she doubted him seemed more like a desperate plea to be believed in. So she told him that he didn't have to make such a promise, that she trusted him. At first, he was surprised. Then he tried to scare her, saying he might eat her, or worse, but nothing seemed to work on her now. The two of them simply shared a quiet embrace under the moonlight. Sometime later, Leo and Gurim visited Father's castle in London. Inside, everything reminded Leo of the time he had spent there with Rose, but this was his last visit as he told Gemino that he was leaving this place for good. Gemino tried to convince him to stay, but Leo replied that he was human now and repeated the words Rose used to say, wanting to die like a human. Leo and Gurim left together for somewhere unknown, and Gemino became busy fulfilling his duties. On the other hand, we see Yunsu and Chea walking together in a park. Chea had decided to stop writing the book as she had already achieved her goal. Yunsu asked if she wanted to travel together with him, adding that he had deliberately avoided visiting many places, because if he saw everything, life would become boring. Chea wondered whether, in the eternity of his life, there was still anything left that could interest him. She asked if it was really okay for her to come along, because then he would no longer have anything to be curious about. Yunsu replied that it was okay, as he had found something else to be curious about, while looking at Chea. Walking like ordinary lovers, they would live like this, buried among people, unnoticed by the world. Chea offered him some of her ice cream, and it turned out it was his first time having one. Just like that, the two of them laughed and smiled while looking at each other and slowly disappeared into the crowd.